Hello, Augies Worldwide. I'm Dave Kassler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, here with another episode of Ask Dave. Today is supposed to be the day that I test the Alpha Delta DXEE antenna and tell you how wonderful it is. And I really do wish I could do that because I had kind of hyped it a little bit there and talked about great things it would do on 20 and 40. Well, I am embarrassed. I'm going to have to eat some crow today. I'll see if my wife will loan me some ketchup to use while I eat that crow. But I am disappointed in the performance of the Alpha Delta antenna, namely the bandwidth on 40 meters. It looks a lot like the 25 or 30 kilohertz that a 80 through 10 vertical would cover on 80, but instead it's on 40. 40 is a main band. We need to cover all of the general voice segment at least, and hopefully all of the entire voice segment, and ideally the entire band, like a dipole might. But what I'm going to do here is kind of run through the things I've got lots of video on. I'll just try and be very selective of unpacking the antenna, putting it up, and then we'll talk about results, the SWR testing on it, and discover the very narrow bandwidth on 40. So this antenna, as good as it is, as well constructed as it is, as well as it does on 20 and 15, it really covers the entire 20 meter band very nicely, is just, it can't be the station reference antenna. So as part of eating crow here, I'm going to withdraw this from the recommendation for the station reference antenna, and I'm going to look around a little bit, find one and test another antenna. I have one in mind, the MFJ 4020 two-band dipole, which is about half the price of the Alpha Delta, although not constructed nearly as nicely. Try that out. Maybe we'll end up doing something homebrew, I don't know. But what I want is an antenna that can truly cover 40 and 20. Other bands are nice. Other bands are nice. But 40 and 20 is where the action is on single sideband. Now on FT8, you're going to find it on lots of different bands, so that's where those other nice bands come in. So let's dive into the unbagging and the erection and so on, and then we'll come back and look at the SWR test results. It's a DXEE 40, 20, 15, and 10 meters, and it's 40 feet long. Okay, so not too terribly long. And we're gonna not unbox it, but unbag it. Let's see. I'll just do that the easy way and see what we've got in here. Got instructions. Look like they were printed on a inkjet printer, and there's a lot of they've got the same instructions for all the different models, so we'll have to, oh, here they go, they've got them, the model EE. This is the one that we're going to do. Unroll them, remove the kinks at each side, find the wires and so on. So let's take a look at what we've got in here, and then this will talk about putting them up in the air. Oh boy. Okay, we have, in fact, this is interesting, we've got some rope for each end of the antenna. One could note that this is probably a caution to avoid putting the ends of this too close to any metal. You put the coax here, and you've got one side and the other side. They've got a little thing in here which is a lightning protector. They've got one of their little gas tubes in there. So if there is a nearby lightning strike, it'll short across the two halves of the antenna, making it less likely that stuff will come down to your set. Well, let's open this right here, if we can. May have to get a stronger tool. There we go. Okay, let's turn it back over. We want to be careful, because one thing we definitely do not want to do is get this thing tangled up. Okay, it's going to break into two halves here. Alright. Now, let's just put one half over here so we can look at this half. We've got one trap right here. There's a trap on each side. The trap goes between the 40 meter and the 20 meter side of the antenna. Now this is interesting. This is coming out of the trap and isn't very long. Alright. That's all they've got in there for that. I wonder if that's what that extra antenna wire is for. We'll find out. They've got some kind of a little bit of protective plastic over this thing, and they say to remove it prior to installation, which we will do. They've got this done up here with a plastic base. Now, a trap normally requires both inductance and capacitance, and if you do it right, you get the interwinding capacitance here distributed across the entire coil. And so that's how they've done that, to get the right capacitance in here for that. It looks very sturdy. In fact, this whole antenna just looks very, very sturdy. Okay, here is the, now this is a trap antenna. No, it's a trap antenna, but it's also a fan dipole. These are the little things that, see, we've got holes in them. These little things have got holes in them. This has got two holes, so we're going to have the, let's see, it'll be 40, 20, the 15 and 10. The 15 will go through all of them, and the 10 will just go through these three right here. Now these are the actual wires for the fan dipole part. They all go in here, and they're really wound together. Now there's going to be some inductance right in there, and presumably that's all figured into part of the antenna. Note that there's no balun here. They say if you want to put a balun in, you can. It should be a choke balun. The instructions seem to imply that this should be done with rope and not wire. So we're using the rope. I'm a lousy knot tire. Never got to tenderfoot in Scouts, so I never learned any knots. My dad was in the Navy. He tried to teach me knot tying, but that didn't take. Okay, so we're going to take this up a ways here so we can get far enough that we can start. Okay, we're going to work first on this side here, and then I'll just repeat that on the other side. The idea is to keep this wire from kinking or getting badly bent, and this top piece is already kind of bent, so we'll just straighten it out. Okay, it's beginning to look like a fan dipole. Now it comes with some nylon, so I'm going to nylon rope, so I will attach that to the end here, and then I'm going to put a stake in the ground, and then we'll pull it up as high as it goes and then make an inverted V out of it. So I'm going to do the same thing I just did on the other end and put that stake in there. All right, I think that gives you some idea of the construction of the antenna. It is very sturdy, very sturdily built, and clearly designed to stay in the air for a long time. The first clue I had that we'd have bandwidth problems on 40 meters was the very short length of the extension from the 20 end to the 40. And my premonition kicked in then that there might be a problem here. So first, I'm going to walk you through a photograph of the completed antenna that I've labeled with all the parts and pieces. And then we're going to go through SWR readings for 10, 15, 20, and 40. And we'll see what the results mean and why we'll be looking for another antenna for the reference antenna. Now, please understand me. I'm not saying this is a bad antenna. It's not. It's very well constructed. What I am saying is that it says in the literature it covers 40 meters, when in fact it only covers a very narrow portion of 40 meters, whereas a normal dipole would cover all of 40 meters. So I'll be back in a moment with an update to that. First, let's look at some pictures. All right, this is an annotated diagram. Let's start over at the left. At the left, you see the 40-meter section, which is between the insulator at the left and the trap just a couple feet away from it. That is supposed to be the 40-meter section. Now, the only way that can be the 40-meter section is if the trap heavily loads it, which it does. Okay, so the trap isn't acting just as a trap. It's acting as a loading coil for that little tiny 40-meter section there. The 20-meter section, which is the bottom wire on the left side and the top wire on the right side, is essentially full length. So it works, it covers the whole band. Now you can see the 15-meter fan dipole there and the 10-meter fan dipole. Now I have attached to this mast, which is made of 5 4-foot aluminum sections, and I put a pulley at the top so that I could pull that feed point all the way up to the top. I also fixed it so that it would have a little bit of an offset at the top and not be right against that metal mast. The coax for the test happens to be a piece of RG213, but it doesn't matter. We're going to save that piece of RG8X for later when we get a better antenna. Now, I do point out there's lots of mud out there. It looks like it's drying out, but believe me, that ground is not dry and won't be. March is called mud season for a reason. Let's look at the 10-meter SWR. It does not cover the whole 10-meter band. Now, note that the minimum of 1.05 at 29.41 megahertz is way up too high. So what we have to do is actually lengthen the 10-meter section to bring that narrow passband. Actually, it's fairly good sized. We want to get the 2-to-1 SWR right at 28 megahertz, and the other 2-to-1 on the other side of the dip will be up high enough that it will cover the active both CW and sideband portion of 10 meters. Right now this thing is resonant in an FM section. This is fixable. This is okay. There's nothing wrong with it. Now let's look at 15 meters, 21 megahertz here. We see that the band is covered from 2-to-1. The actual low point there is at the top of the band. We would have to actually lengthen the 15-meter section a bit, but I'm very surprised and pleased that this covers the whole 15-meter band, which is a fairly wide band. It's 450 kilohertz wide, and this covers it. So a little adjustment. This is fixable. Now here's the 20 meter band. It is 1.2 to 1 up to where it is less than 1.5 to 1. It's about 1.3 to 1. Now let's see, 1.4 to 1 across the entire band. This is excellent. This covers the entire 20 meter band. I would not try to adjust this. This is perfect. Now let's take it 40 meters. Herein lies the problem. A 40 meter dipole would be about 1.5 to 1 or less across the entire band. This is clearly not that. The 2 to 1 SWR only includes about 15 to 20% of the band. Now we can go up to the 3 to 1 SWR if we're going to use the tuner that's built into the ICOM 7300, but still it's not covering the whole band. Now this is resonating a little low, so the antenna needs to be shortened. Now shortening that little tiny 40 meter piece is really going to make this even tighter. I'd like to move this resonance, which is this resonance here. I'm sorry, not resonance. The minimum SWR 1.14 is at 7.120 megahertz, which happens to be right at the top of the CW band. We would want to move this up so that it's right in the middle of the general band. Now, it would cover most of the general band at 3 to 1. You'd need to use the tuner inside your radio. I'd like to see it cover the whole band at less than 2 to 1. Now, this is the reason I'm saying this is probably not a good idea for the station reference antenna, because its coverage of 40 meters does not include the entire band. So what are we going to do about that? Well, I'm going on search for a better antenna. I want it to be inexpensive. Under $100 would be ideal. This antenna was $150. Of course, we had to pay for the coax. The coax could end up being more expensive than the antenna itself. I called Richard Stubbs at MFJ and explained my problem to him because I was curious about MFJ's 40/20 dual band trapped dipole and was asking him what kind of SWR range we got on the 40. He was thinking that it is a loaded antenna, it's only 42 feet long, and we might end up with the same problem as here. So he is also sending me, in addition to that antenna, he is sending me MFJ's off-center fed dipole, which is going to cover 40 and 20 and a few other things, okay? So that's what we'll be looking at next. So as of this moment, I have withdrawn a recommendation for a reference antenna. I'm going to eat a little crow because I should have tested it before I recommended it. And that's my bad. I apologize if you've already bought this antenna. Again, try to get it up into the general band there, and you'll have at least fairly good coverage of the general band. And with the tuner that's in the radio, whatever radio you have, or the ICOM 7300 will cover up to the 3 to 1 bandwidth. So move that up by shortening the 40 meter. Now I'm going to tell you, because it's loaded, it's going to be extremely sensitive to how much you move it. An inch or two might move that thing up where you would want it. Okay, so we're going to keep working on this antenna. That's the next important part. Now, I would also like to mention the Saturday live streams. Now, there will not be a Saturday live stream this weekend, which is the 7th of March, because I've got a conflict, but I will have them after that. The first Saturday of the month is starting to look iffy for me, so we'll see how that goes. For those of you who've been following my questions about whether or not I ever become a pilot, it looks like sport pilot is the best way for me to go. The problem is there's no sport aircraft in the area available for rent. So I got to go find one. We'll see what happens. In the meantime, thank you so much for your support of this channel. Please check out dcastler.com/support for different ways that you can support this channel. And next time we meet to talk about the reference station, I'll have an actual tested antenna recommendation. In the meantime, I may be making a couple extra videos. I've got one on a new radio from Radioddity coming up. I've also got the new micro BITX that actually comes in a kit with a case. So it's complete. Everything is there that you need. I'll be building that too. That just arrived yesterday from India. So lots to look forward to, and get on the air, enjoy it, and we'll talk to you soon. 73.